I can still see it. Like it was yesterday, me standing at the edge of my cornfield, mud pulling at my boots, just staring at a fresh set of tire tracks slicing straight through my crops again. Fourth time that week, same wide tread, same diagonal scar across what's supposed to be my little patch of peace. Sun's low glinting off something white in the distance, the back end of a shiny luxury SUV disappearing behind the trees, the sound of crushed stalks and spinning tires echoing in my jaw, making it clench up tight. And look, I'm not some cranky old farmer who yells at clouds just 'cause the world's changing. My name's Evan Carter, 48 years old, former logistics manager turned first-time cattle rancher after 20 years under fluorescent lights and forced office birthday parties. I'd saved and planned, finally bought 80 acres of quiet just outside a Kansas town, rolling hills a creek, winding through the east edge cattle, grazing lazy, not a single HOA sign for miles. That right there was the selling point. Freedom, nobody telling me how tall my grass ought to be or what color mailbox I could have. But I guess freedom doesn't sit well with everybody because my property line just happens to butt up against Silver Ridge Estates. Picture every stereotype, oversized homes, mailboxes that cost more than my truck driveways that get watered twice a week, and neighbors who introduce themselves with a handshake and a business card like they're always closing a deal. And leading the charge was Victoria Payne, HOA treasurer, queen of the neighborhood, and the woman whose white Escalade had made my field her personal shortcut. First time it happened, I was confused, thought maybe she was lost or dodging a downed limb. Second time, I started to get that prickle, you know. By the third, I was standing in her way, my old pickup blocking her path, watching her car plow through rows of young corn like it was just another speed bump on her commute. She rolled her window down, sunglasses so big I could see my own reflection, lips curled in a little smile that said she'd never been told no in her whole life. "Can I help you?" I managed, trying to sound like I wasn't about to lose it. She laughed, tiny dismissive. "There's an easement here," she said, like it was settled law from the 60s. Public access. "No, ma'am," I said, holding her gaze. "This is private property. Title's clear. No easement." She tilted her head, sunglasses back on. "You're new here. You'll figure it out." Then she just drove right around my truck, mud flying like I was an orange cone at a parking lot. That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was war, and I was outgunned by the Queen of Silver Ridge and her HOA army. I called my lawyer, Jim Sanderson, a plain-spoken guy who'd never met a loophole he didn't want to close. 2 days later, Jim calls back, "Title's clean, Evan. No easement, no rights of way. She's trespassing, period." I figured that would be that, right? But you ever try to tell a rich suburbanite no? Not only did Victoria keep driving through, she doubled down twice a day. 7:15 in the morning, 5:00 at night, engine roaring right on schedule, tearing up corn like it was a personal vendetta. I put up no trespassing signs, big, shiny, reflective. She didn't even slow down. Sent her a certified cease and desist letter. She signed for it, then tossed it out the window as she rolled past papers fluttering across my field like confetti. Called the sheriff's office, got Deputy Mark Lawson. Good kid, looked genuinely sorry to be there, walked the field, took photos, promised to talk to her. Couple hours later, he comes back looking beat. "Mr. Carter, she's got some paperwork, claims an old easement says you're harassing her." I just stared. Harassing? She's the one plowing my crops. He shrugged. "I believe you, but unless I catch her in the act and she refuses to leave, it's a civil matter." You ever hear words that just burn right through you? Civil matter meaning it's my job to fork over 30 grand to take her to court. So I did what any desperate man does. I built a steel gate across her path, locked it with the fattest chain I could find, spent Friday night sweating and cussing at the fence posts. Felt good drinking coffee Saturday morning, thinking maybe, just maybe, I could enjoy a quiet weekend. That lasted about 10 minutes. Engine revs, the metallic snap of a chain, And there she is, Victoria, in a spotless white blouse, bolt cutters in hand, like it's just another day at the office. She snipped the lock, kicked open the gate, and drove through middle finger out the window for good measure. Lucky for me, I had a trail cam rolling. Called Deputy Lawson again, showed him the footage. He just shook his head. I'll file a report, but this is escalating. Escalating didn't begin to cover it. Next week, I get a letter from some Omaha law firm accusing me of blocking an established route, threatening lawsuits if I don't remove the barriers. Jim drafted a reply that basically told them where to stick it politely. Then the HOA lawyer jumps in, waving historic documents about an easement nobody can produce. Meanwhile, Victoria keeps tearing up my crops twice a day. But the day that broke me, I was in the barn fixing a feeder when her horn blared. She did it every time just to spook the cattle. Lucy, my best heifer 6 weeks from calving, spooked so bad she slipped on the wet ground. By the time I got there, the calf was gone. Vet said it was stress, a miscarriage. $4,000 lost, not counting what it did to my gut, watching that animal suffer. That night I sat at the kitchen table staring at the ceiling, feeling helpless for the first time in years. That's when I started researching not revenge, just protection. Found a forum post about retractable spike strips, the kind cops use. Read case law, check state codes called Jim. If I put spike strips on my property to stop a trespasser, am I breaking the law? Long pause. Gray area Evan. But you've warned her, documented everything. Post clear signs, notify law enforcement. Do it by the book. You should be fine. Defined by the book, I asked. Every 50 feet, multiple signs, last certified letter with photos, transparency is your armor. So that's what I did. Ordered professional spike strips, 3 10-foot sections. Spent a week planting 30 reflective signs along the path, bold red letters, private property, vehicle deterrent devices in use, tire damage will occur. Photographed everything, sent Victoria. One last certified letter with photos, notified the sheriff. Sunday night I barely slept, sat in the barn watching the trail cam feed, every muscle tense. At 7:14 sharp, Monday morning, there she was. White Escalade barreling down, blew past the first sign, then the second, then the third, never even slowing down. 10 yards from the spike strip, I whispered, "Here we go." Pop, pop, both front tires gone. She kept rolling, maybe thinking she'd hit a rock, then rear tires, pop, pop, Escalade, limped on shredded rubber, made it 50 more feet before the next strip finished the job. Came to a stop right in the middle of my cornfield, sitting low, looking defeated. Victoria climbed out, stared at the car, circled it, screaming into her phone, kicking a flat tire. I called the sheriff. "I've got an active trespasser whose vehicle's been disabled by multiple warnings. Could you send a deputy?" Grabbed my folder, deed photos, receipts, vet report, and walked out. She saw me coming, went off. "You psycho. Attempted murder." I stayed 10 feet away, kept my voice steady. "You were warned, Victoria, for 6 months. Every letter, every sign, every chance to stop. Consequence. You call this consequence. My husband will have you in court by noon." I hit record on my phone, laid out every warning, every documented step. She turned her phone on me, yelling about being trapped, about attempted murder. I just looked into her camera. "My name's Evan Carter. This is private property. All deterrents are legally installed and marked." She was notified and signed the receipt. For the first time, she seemed unsure. That's when Deputy Lawson pulled up, lights flashing. She ran to him. "He tried to kill me. He set traps." Lawson just looked at the spike strips, the wall of warning signs, then back at me. "Ma'am, do you have documentation of this easement?" She blustered. "Call my lawyer." "Do you have it with you?" he pressed. "No, but—" "Then you're trespassing." He started writing. "Criminal trespassing isn't civil, especially after warnings and property damage." Her face went pale, tried threatening him. "My husband will have your badge." He just shook his head. Threatening an officer isn't helping. Tow truck driver whistled at the tires. Lady, these are toast. Rims, too. $3,000, easy. Victoria just stared at the ground, signed the receipt, glassy-eyed mumbled, "You'll regret this," before Lawson drove her home. 2 quiet days. No lawyers, no cops, no HOA. Peace finally. Then a new letter. Victoria's personal attorney. Now she's suing me for $42,000, reckless endangerment, emotional distress. Jim laughed so hard he nearly dropped the phone. They just gave us a gift. We filed a counterclaim, 6 months of trespass, property, damage, harassment, emotional distress, and the miscarriage, $28,000, plus punitive damages. A week later, nothing. Then my neighbor Dale calls Evan, you won't believe it. Victoria used HOA money for her lawyer. Board member Patricia found fake invoices, personal charges, $60,000 missing. County's opening an investigation for embezzlement and fraud. Just like that, Victoria and her husband suspended the county involved, and suddenly the untouchable queen was the gossip of every coffee shop for miles. Court day comes. Victoria shows up, stone-faced, pleads guilty to trespass in exchange for reduced charges. Judge orders her to pay me $8,500 gate crop loss. Vet bill, years probation restraining order. County brings embezzlement charges. Richard files for divorce. Their house goes on the market at a loss. New HOA board sends me a formal apology. I framed it for the irony. Built a real fence with the restitution money, steel posts, solar lights. Lucy's healthy and pregnant again. Now some evenings I sit on the porch with a mug of coffee, watching the sun spill over the fields, thinking how close I came to giving up. Truth is, people like Victoria don't start out evil. They just get used to never being told no. Every time the world lets them bend a rule, they start thinking rules don't apply. But accountability's got a way of showing up steel-toed boots and a folder full of receipts in hand. I didn't win by rage or being meaner. I won by patience, documentation, and sticking to the right way, even when it was harder and lonelier. When the dust settled, it wasn't revenge I felt. It was peace. Spike strips are still in the barn, haven't needed them since. But sometimes a stranger drives by, rolls down their window. "Hey, you the guy with the spike strips." I just smile and say, "Yeah, but only needed them once." See, the story's not about spike strips. It's about boundaries, about what happens when someone decides your no doesn't matter and keeps pushing because no one's ever pushed back. And when the day finally comes, you say, enough's enough. If you've ever dealt with a Victoria, an entitled boss, a neighbor who just won't stop, tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you believe patience, respect, and the law still means something, hit subscribe, because the next story, let's just say you're not going to believe what happened when the HOA president tried to tow my tractor. Sometimes karma just needs a little help, and maybe a few spike strips along the way.